I've been building code with AI for several years now, exclusively just about. And really my workflow has gotten really tight, especially with today's models and tools. Today I'm going to be showing off a workflow that I use that I find highly successful. I'm very excited to share little bits of this. I'm going to take you from a really rough idea, how I ideate, all the way through the planning, where I define things, refine things, really multiply things using multiple agents, and expand things by actually looking at using these tools in a way that's not even coding, a way that you might even not yet think you can use these tools. And that's pretty exciting. By the end, you'll understand exactly how I work, and you can steal all or any little piece of it. Let's dive in. Okay, to get started, I'm going to have to show this very briefly. There's a lot that I'm going to jump cut through. This component down here at the bottom is one of the things that we're looking to change today. So I want to kind of make some changes to this. We're going to be going into a product that is already in flight and we're making changes to it, but I'm going to use my whole process to show you exactly how I get there. And my very first step is generally trying to just figure out what the idea is. Very often this is raw. I don't come to the final conclusion until I ideate through quite a few things. You're seeing here some of the ideas I have for this control and some of the changes that I'm looking for, but really I will then kind of walk around and meander and allow my mind to just kind of free associate into a microphone. Expand the viewport or zoom into time series data. It doesn't move very gracefully, right? What I have is kind of an example, but really some of the parts that I'm talking about will be being able to pan on the elements and be able to move the time series around. That capture phase is really important. All of your ideas, this is an important phase. The first phase is the define phase. And this is kind of an area where I capture information, come up with ideas, figure out how to create a definition of what I want from it. Generally, I'll call that a PRD. You'll see that in a second. And then I give that to the systems and I allow the systems to plan it. This is an incredibly important step. If I am successful in a project, it is almost certain I'm successful because of this phase. This ends up really representing probably 70% of the meaningful work of everything. And in fact, I really believe this is where a lot of our work will be in the future. Really, this define phase is everything. Can't say that enough. We now have the walk that I did to try to capture my raw ideas of the things that need to change. I created this image of changes that I'm interested in. And then finally, the definition of the component itself. I'm going to take all of these, give them to ChatGPT. I want to get to a document that says, what should a user be able to see? What should they not be able to see? What are the interactions between these parts? What's important? What should be kind of the emotional takeaway? It's a very simplistic, direct representation of what should be built, not how. I'm going to be very explicit about telling it that I don't want any how, I just want the what. I'm sharing several documents with you. I've given you some visual notes of some of the things that I want to change. What we're looking for from you here is what you'll find in the walk document, where I'm kind of describing the things that I'm interested in affecting for this component. I don't want any of the how. I'm not looking for this to be technical at all. I'm looking for this to be a requirements document that will tell the story of what we want. This really does tell the story of what do we want from it. It gives a little bit of the background. It tells us it wants it smooth and stable, things like that. The experience, it says the end feeling should be, quote unquote, I grab the window, I move it, everything listens to me, nothing fights back. We're going to take this, I'm going to capture this whole thing, copy it here, and then take it over to Claude Code. But let's talk quickly about how I'm using Claude Code over there. I will tell you that I use cursor specifically so that I can look at these documents, so that I can kind of look at the files that are generated when I need to. What I am going to do is I'll come out here, I'll create another PRD, create a new folder over here for minimap changes, create a minimap changes PRD, and then excellent. So this is the definition that we wanted. That's the PRD that we just got out of ChatGPT. So I will run Claude. From here, I am going to Shift Tab. And when I Shift Tab, I'll keep doing it so you can see it happening on the bottom. I am moving through the different modes. The mode that is important, you probably already know this, is plan mode. And so right now, I am in planning mode, which theoretically means don't write any files, just think. I want you to work in a conversational way. We're going to say minimap changes PRD, minimap changes, PNG. So, okay, so now I'm referencing these two. Please use the information in the PRD here and kind of come up with a very solid plan. All right, and we're off. The Claude.md file is a major aspect of my workflow. Really any agents file. This is just the memory file. It's the thing that loads in whenever you start a new chat. I've come into the bottom of mine and said, I want lint clean code and I want unit tests for critical logic. This file is really important to allow the system to build the way that you want it building all of the time. Just remember, this is always going in to every conversation you have. So it's really important stuff that you just want as universal. So at this point, it's asking me about the context bar. Yeah, and I think it's sync everything. Read the plan. Take a look at it. Make sure it's okay. If there's things you're not really comfortable with, this is still in conversation mode. It will allow you to have a complete conversation back and forth with it as long as you like. It will keep updating the plan. Then you will have the plan that you want to build. Get it right here. This is the measure twice. This is the measure 50 times if you do it right. And there's just so many cuts that are going to come. You really want to get this measurement right. Okay, here we are. Let's see what it came up with. All right, and the drag is happening with a ghosting, which is great. That was one of the details that we wanted. That seems to move much smoother. Doesn't have the same problems it was having before, which is great. Oh, I could drag the right thing. And then, all right, so let's also, we have stronger arms on the ends that you can see, but maybe they're not quite strong enough. I think that I would still strengthen those a little bit more. We get this new bar up top, which is supposed to be draggable, and it is, and you can see how it affects the viewport as well. I don't know that it's exactly right, but we'll live with it. Okay, so it's better, not perfect. Okay, so here's the thing. The plan is never perfect. You're always going to have to make changes. Well, maybe not always, but it's very, very likely you're going to have to make changes. Don't let that throw you. That's okay. But now we enter the refine stage. And I want to talk a little bit about my workflow on how I refine. This is going to go a little bit quicker. Refine is pretty obvious. You'll be doing a lot of these same things as well. And then we will move into maybe a little bit more interesting steps after refine. But let's first talk about the actual functional steps that I take when I'm refining. Okay, number one thing about this phase of kind of when you're revising, when you're editing, when you're iterating is your context. Context window is how much information basically you're throwing at the model whenever you have a conversation with it. You want to minimize this. We have just been going through a huge plan, both creating the plan and executing the plan. So there's a bunch in our context window. If we took a look at it, I'm going to do /context, and /context will allow me to visualize the context. And you can see here that all of these purples are the messages. That's kind of the conversation back and forth. Also, what's in these 11 kind of items I don't need, right? The vast majority of those messages have nothing to do with the next thing I'm going to do. So this is what's critical. Clear your context. What you want in your context window is literally the exact amount that's needed for the model to understand the problem and to understand what your request to solve is. That's it. You don't want more and you don't want less. So making this as small as possible isn't really the answer. But for us, we're going to do a /clear. And clear is the way to kind of create a new chat. If you were in ChatGPT and you hit the new chat button, that's essentially what we're doing here. If I hit up arrow twice, I'll go back to my context call. That's what we're seeing. We need to clear this frequently. The answer, the best thing I can give you is clear your context whenever you finish a little something. If you feel like the next thing isn't directly related, clear your context. You'll be happy. Okay, number two, the easy thing here. This one's another one that's really easy. Screenshots. These things can't see what you see. I know that sounds really obvious, but it sounds like it knows what's on the screen. It will describe things as if it understands what's on the screen. It does not. It's looking at code to infer what is likely on the screen at any given moment. Some tools can give it the ability to see what's going on in the browser, so you have to give it visibility. What I'm going to do is show you a screenshot utility. I've hit a keystroke that I have here. I can then drag anything that I want, and it creates this little screenshot. With a simple click of a button, I can come in and kind of mark things up and have conversations with the model specifically and say, do you see the two pink arrows? Those dots should be the same size or something like that. that. Now I can drag this in, or I can Control V, and that's the way to paste things that are screenshots into Terminal. Really get used to doing screenshots. You should be able to take screenshots super easy. I use CleanShot, that's the screenshot utility I use, but there are great free options on all of these operating systems. They already work perfectly well. Use those. All right, and the last thing that I will call out here for refine is testing. Now, that may seem like something these things do automatically. You need to tell them to write test cases. You need to tell them to run the test cases. You need to tell them to care about the test case. If you recall in our Claude file, one of the things that I had to write inside of my Claude file to make sure that it cares about this is something about unit tests. You can also write something about visual tests or UI tests or E2E or end-to-end tests. And these are the kind of tests that generally would implement a browser. There are ways for these to use something like Playwright, which will use a browser even silently so you don't get to see it. You can see that I have Playwright in this project so that end-to-end or visual tests can be built and it can verify things for me. But by the way, I still need to remind it when I'm going back and forth with it 3 or 4 times before I say, oh, shouldn't you be able to write a test? This feels like a visual test you need to write or an end-to-end test. It knows what to do beyond that, but it will not remember to do that. These things are smart enough to be solid engineers, but they're not constantly thinking like solid engineers. So you will have to remind them of some of these things. Testing is tremendously important. You want this in a desperate way going forward. You might not need it to get your thing off the ground. I guarantee you, if you don't have good tests, 3 months down the road, you will cry. So you want testing. It is the thing that allows you to make changes later, and many of them, as we start expanding that, which is what we're about to go take a look at, is expanding this stuff and multiplying. But you can't multiply if you don't have solid tests. You will cry. Let's dive into multiply and see how really we can create multiples of you. Okay, like I said, this is really one of my favorites. I do this all the time. It's a lot of fun, but also it's such an unlock and it's kind of not obvious to a lot of people. I don't think enough people are talking about it. I am here down at Claude AI. So this is the website for Claude, very similar to like ChatGPT. If you go into the menu on the left, you'll see Code. Codex has something like this. Gemini also has something like this. So look for their cloud building systems. Those are pretty good as well. Codex one is fantastic. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select the project that we were just looking at. We're still in the same project. And what we're looking to do here is just ask for a change in this project. That's really all we're trying to do, just like we would down in Claude Code. If I was in Claude Code here and I wanted to ask for something, please do something, I can simply do that same change up here. Okay, so that's really the value proposition. First off, let's get a couple of these going, and then I'll describe why on earth we're doing this. All right, so let's get rid of this box here. I think we should be able to get rid of that. There is this box at the top that does pixel definition that you can slide around for kind of pixels per year. I just want to get rid of that. All right, so let's also change the grab points here. The grab points when I mouse over the edges of the bar that's shown in this image aren't big enough. We're certainly drawing bars now, but I need them to be a little bit more prominent and to feel like something that a user could grab and drag around. Okay, so now we have 2 tasks running. The nice thing is you can see that they're running in parallel with one another at the same time. Basically the same thing. They're also asynchronous and they're off and doing their thing in the cloud. They're not part of my machine. I could shut the machine down, go somewhere else, do something else. I can kick these off on my phone. I do that, by the way, all of the time. This is a very, very useful feature. It is full Claude Code, just like we were asking for it down here. That's what's running in the cloud. And it really allows you to do a couple things. First, you can create many, many different changes at the same time and work much faster. Second, you can become kind of disconnected from the changes. So I'm not waiting for them to finish, worried about when they pop back up. They're not taking up a terminal window that I'm watching or anything like that. They're just off and doing their thing. Very often I will kick off 4 or 5 of the same similar kind of changes to figure out which one is the direction I want to take and check them out at the end. But this is a real unlock. If you haven't played with the cloud yet, you're about to be addicted. Okay, now that we've got this far, real briefly, let's turn these into PRs. If I hit this button, it creates a PR out of it. That's great. I'll get that started. This is going back to GitHub. Of course, this is a GitHub application. All right, so let's get the other one into PR state as well. And there's a lot of ways to deal with this here. I will not do anything here because this is not my standard process. Now let's talk about the last thing, which to me is tremendously exciting, and that's really expanding. We're trying to figure out a way to use these tools in ways that maybe you haven't used them in the past, and in one case, I can guarantee you you're not using it this way yet. So let's take a look at expanding our tool set. Okay, last section, and frankly, this is the one that I spend an enormous amount of time in on a daily basis. I write all of these scripts for these videos in it. I work with research in it. I work with my meeting notes and compile different projects and plans from it. It is a way of using these tools that is not for code. That's the real idea. First thing we're going to do, the first example, is we're going to do something that's very code specific, but maybe not in a way that you've used it in the past. So here we are in GitHub one more time. I just wanted to show you, we have the 2 PRs that are open. They're sitting there waiting for us to review. We haven't even seen them yet. So what I will do very often is I will continue to work in Claude Code where possible, and I will come in and say clear, and then ask Claude Code, hey, what are the open PRs? It knows where GitHub is. It knows everything about this repo. So this is table stakes for it. It can do this very easily. So you can see it saying increase the grab point size is number 20. Hide pixel definition slider is number 19. So let's take a look at 19. And it's going to be this easy. Okay. And the box is gone. So that one's perfect. We can still slide around. Everything looks good the way it's supposed to. Seems reasonable. Great. Let's check on the other. Okay, so it has checked out. The box came back because we're on the first one. We can already see that the grab point handles are very large. Whether or not we like them, I think that they're way too big in this state. So this is excellent. It's not bad, but before I hover over the bar, I think I'd rather them kind of not be visible at all. So let's ask for that change. Okay, so this is interesting, but I'd like the grab handles to not be visible until I hover over the selection ring. Okay, so this is nothing but Git at this point. I'm on a different branch. I'm making changes to the branch itself. Once this passes and I'm happy with it, I will simply push this back up. That PR will automatically update with those values because the PR represents the branch trying to merge into the main branch. So it just works that way naturally. You don't have to worry about anything. Check it out. Make the changes that you want work in the iterative fashion that we've been working in. Once you're done, you push it back up, and then Bob's your uncle. Okay, here we are, and once I mouse over them, then I have the handles. Okay, sufficient for now. Let me run my git push command, a slash command that I've created for myself, which is another secret trick. Create your own slash commands for the things that you like. So that PR is updated. It has grab handles only when you hover over the thing. That's fine. But so now what? We have 2 PRs up in GitHub. I can go back and use that flow, but boy, do I not feel like doing that. So why don't I just ask Claude Code if it can do it? Hey, Claude, I have 2 PRs, I think, that are open against this repo right now. I've verified both of them, and I think I'd like to approve them. Can you just go ahead, get us back on main, and start approving these PRs and getting them merged back in as well, and getting our main here nice and updated? It is that easy. Okay, 25 seconds later, let's take a look. Box is gone. Grab handles are there when I'm over it. Excellent. Okay, I have saved the best for last, sort of. But really, if you've got this far, you're going to get this extra treasure. You may have never used Claude Code or other tools like this in this way, but this is literally how they're intended to be used. We think of them as things that write code. I'm about to show you how to do things just to your local files in a meaningful way. What we've been looking at is this bicycle history file. This bicycle history file is a whole bunch of different events. Each one of these events has a particular image URLs that we've been seeing in the descriptions. Some of these descriptions are multiple paragraphs. They're nice big write-ups for each one of these items. They've been researched and put in here. Of course, I did not do all of that because that would be insane to do that these days. So what I thought I would do is take the board game history one, which does not feel the same. In fact, you can see that in many cases it has very short descriptions instead of long descriptions, and many of these images actually do not work. Let's take a quick look. Okay, here's the board game system, and you can see how many images are broken. That's just indicative of the major problems that we have with this data. It's good data, but it's only a start. So I really need to do something that can actually completely blow this out and really do something like a deep research on it. But my gosh, how am I going to get the deep research into this format? This is the format the data needs to be in, etc., etc. So what did I do? I decided to write a command here that I called editor. And inside of this command, I really used, by the way, Claude Code to write this command, and I always do. I write many of these, and I write these as if they're agents. And if we read through this whole thing, which we will not, you will see that it has the file structure in it, some examples, but it also has some really good rules about how it's supposed to find images, validate the images using curl and other systems. I've had it write a script that you'll see here that it will use as a tool. So it knows about this script and how to run this tool, which is right here, to make sure that the images are valid. It will go and do searches to get better information and better images and more appropriate information for everything. It will make sure that things are in correct groups and can be identified together as different groupings. So it does a whole bunch of work. And so all I need to do is come to Claude Code. And of course, number one, you're all yelling it at me is I need to clear. You're right. And if I go to history, we'll see history editor here. Oh, come on, screen. History editor. Let's do /editor. So here's our history editor, enhance a history timeline JSON file. If I select it, it tells me which file do I want to use. I will use board game history, and it's off to the races. So here you can see it's already gone through and validated all of the images that were not right. It's going to go through all of the different periods of games. It's doing searches for information about the games as well as images for the games. It is doing it all as if it's a deep research agent. And because of the way Claude Code is harnessed, the way the harness works is it can iterate on a problem. It isn't something like a thinking model that will kind of take a couple internal passes at, is this right? Let's think about it again. Are we sure we're thinking about it correctly? Is it right? And return a value to you? Claude Code's job here, his whole goal in the world is to figure out how to create a to-do list of the different items it needs to do, and then start working slowly through that. And so now this prompt with that data set will completely transform that data. It's kind of awesome. Our history game board data, it went through and validated all of the links, all of the images, all of the external links. It created much larger descriptions, and we may as well come in and take a quick look at it. And now this is the board game experience. Excellent. I read through a lot of this, and it's really a lot of fun, but Claude just worked for, like I say, 45 minutes or so to get through this. I didn't have to interact with it again. Fantastic experience. And this is using something like Claude Code, which is designed theoretically for just writing code, to use that same tool set to be able to edit your local files and other things that you might put in that directory. I have, by the way, done this with sound files, converted a bunch of audio files this way. I've done this with images to both understand what's inside of the images, to rename the images. It can do a whole bunch more than you might imagine. I would say dream something up that you want to go and try, and then go ask Claude Code, hey, you're inside of a directory that has this kind of stuff. Can you do these things? Almost invariably for you, I will tell you, it's going to say yes. Okay, that's it. 4 parts: define, refine, multiply, and expand. That's the whole part of everything I do to kind of create software successfully, as far as I can tell. I will say I didn't go very deeply into / commands, but there's such a major use in Claude Code. Other systems do a pretty good job of it, but Claude Code does a great job of using them. And the fact that you can check them into a project and be able to come back and run the same kind of utilities for the same project when you check it out later. So if you come back to a project 3-6 weeks later, you still have the commands that you need for that project. That is awesome. I will, in fact, sometimes write unique dev or install or test kind of / commands just because it's so much easier for me to just say /test, and it will describe how it's supposed to go find the test cases to be able to run, that sort of thing. So I can't say enough about / commands. Look into them. They're easy to implement. I'll leave that to the reader. In any case, I hope you saw something here. I know this was a lot, but there were so many moving parts when I started writing down what are the things that I think are truly important to the way that I work. A lot of these are really actually important. If you took a few of these away, I honestly would not be as successful as I feel like I am. So I hope you saw something here that's valuable. Thanks for coming along for the ride on this one, and I'll see you in the next one.